thank you very much for inviting me along today. I'm going to talk to you today about a women's safety campaign that we ran in Fife, and I'm here representing the Fife Violence Against Women Partnership today. So I'm going to talk to you today about this campaign that we ran over the summer of this year, and as I said, it was called our Women's Safety Campaign. So what I'm going to cover today is a bit of background to the campaign. We're going to have a look at the toolkit that we used to deliver the campaign. We're going to look a bit at the distribution. We're going to look at some of the learning that we talked about after the campaign, and we're going to have a little bit of a look at going forward, what we plan to build on next. Okay. So this campaign actually started before I was in post. I joined the Fife Violence Against Women Partnership last March, and in 2021 discussions really started taking place about this particular campaign and the development of it. So we started to realise in 2021 that we had an increased media and political interest in women's safety. And in Fife, we were getting a lot of journalists getting in touch with us, asking us to put them in touch with women who had experienced frightening and threatening situations when they were out in the community. And I assume they were looking for some sort of local interest stories and some personal perspective around that. So at that point, advice started flowing about how women can keep themselves safer. And we started to hear that the political leaders around about us, and there were other kind of key voices, were quite surprised to hear that women in their lives were afraid and were adapting their behaviours on a daily basis to avoid male harassment and intimidation. I think as a woman, that's quite surprising to hear because it's something that we probably are aware of constantly. So really the scale of the harassment that women experience began to be spotlighted, and spotlighted particularly by men, I think. And so at that point, the partnership and the Community Safety Committee were keen to avoid making women feel more fearful, but they really wanted to highlight this issue of kind of female safety, women's safety out there. So we were recognising at that point that the risk of stranger danger is relatively low, as has already been expressed by some of the speakers, and that most women are harmed by men known to them, and particularly partners or ex-partners in the context of domestic abuse. So we wanted to try to encapsulate some of that and put that together to kind of get some information out there. So at that point, it was agreed that we would like to coordinate a joint campaign. So this campaign was really to try and think about moving away from victim blaming and highlighting some of the keep safe techniques that most women do know. And there's a lot of work already being done out there around those keep safe techniques. And sometimes it's just instinctive, I think, for women as well, that, we have a sort of feeling, or, just how you might want to keep safe in certain spaces. So we felt that we wanted to kind of move away from that a little bit, and there was an interest in asking men to think about their particular own behaviours, giving men some tips and highlighting how they can help women to feel safer, and really highlighting that relatively small changes from the majority of non-abusive men. We wanted to highlight that non-abusive aspect, but those small changes can really help in terms of community safety. So at this point, a number of partners met to discuss some of the key messages, and a design brief was prepared with Fife Council's communications team. And at that point in the discussions, there was a clear interest in linking to the Police Scotland campaign. So at that point last year, it was the Don't Be That Guy campaign. And some of the core messages from that were really important. It was agreed that there was a real interest in linking the local and national campaigns to get maximum effect. And so a core team really worked on that to try and bridge those two campaigns together. So at that point, a toolkit was developed, and that was a partnership development between Sheila Noble, who's my job share partner, as one of the coordinators for the Fife Violence Against Women Partnership here in Fife, obviously, and she provided the gender-based knowledge, gender-based violence. So is everything okay? Because I'm presenting, I can't see your pictures, so if anything's
everything's fine. Well, I think there's a bit of feedback there, but no worries.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you for reassuring me. So we were looking at this toolkit. The community safety team were on board as well. They developed some of the safety messages with us, and as I said, the Fife Council corporate comms team designed the toolkit and the resources. So here's what we developed. We developed an 18-page campaign toolkit. And basically this gave a bit of an introduction to the campaign. It was available in a PDF format. and it included a range of images. So that included posters, social media images, and suggested text for social media posts as well. So really it provided everything that anyone might need to actually put information out on the campaign on social media or in any aspect of their organisation where posters could be displayed. So we felt that this was really a focus on social media for us. We wanted to try to get as much on social media as we could and just try to kind of saturate social media on Fife during this time. So we kind of focused on social media. So I'm going to show you a couple more images from the toolkit before I move on. So these were some of our social media images that we issued. So you can see we've used some of the statistics that have already been spoken about today in the context of the presentations. And we really had this tagline that men can help women feel safer. So we really just wanted to try to emphasise that there's a part to be played by men out there in our communities. And when we used our posters, which are these two posters here, there's also another two that also continue the messages from the previous social media images. We just wanted to add on at the bottom there sort of 3 key aspects that men can do to help women feel safer. And that was give me space, so keep your distance if you're passing me. If I don't want to talk, leave me alone, and help make a change by calling out any form of harassment. And again, these 3 key ideas link really clearly into the Don't Be That Guy campaign as well. So we felt that that was a link to the national campaign that was already building a lot of success and a lot of momentum across the country. So as part of the toolkit, we developed a Dropbox account, and that meant that people could access the Dropbox. They would have access to each of the images that we had created. They'd have access to the suggested social media text, and they could access as much of that as they wanted. So it's much like the improvement service 16 days toolkit as well, I suppose. And we just really felt that at that point, people had all of the information. They could do as much as they wanted with that. So at this point, we've moved into distribution once the toolkit was completed, and this is where myself and my colleague Kerry Duffy, who's our Learning and Development Officer here at Partnership, we really came into the picture at this point in terms of the campaign. So we had both recently started in post, and we had responsibility to kind of pick that up and roll it out across Fife. So we don't have a Fife Violence Against Women Partnership Facebook or social media page. And for me, that's an interesting point that I might like to ask of those present of other partnerships that does anyone have that and is it useful? And I'll maybe come back to that later on in the presentation. So really we were relying on the Fife Council Facebook page to get our posts out and to get them out into the community. We developed a 4-week plan for distribution. So we had 1 post per week that related to the social media images that I showed you previously. And we had text alongside that as well that we planned to put out to kind of build that momentum over a 4-week period. So initially we started with a distribution list of partners that is already in existence. So we centred around them, introducing the campaign, telling them a bit about ourselves as a partnership and giving suggestions and ideas for how they could use the materials within the toolkit and inviting them to come back to us if they had questions at any point. So this list of partners was predominantly organisations that were already involved with us. So that was NHS Fife. It was looking at different partners within the council, looking at Police Scotland and all of our third sector agencies such as the Women's Aid and FRASAC and within our locality. So at this point, we did that sort of bulk distribution to people that we knew were already kind of part of our core partnership. And then we started to consider the angle. So we started to think, where would men meet? Where would men be? How could we get the messages out to organisations that men might be a predominant audience or might have a higher footfall? So we started to think about football clubs, golf clubs, rugby clubs, leisure centres, and Andy's Man Club. We've got a really strong Andy's Man Club presence in Fife as well. So we started to look at those and make sure there was distribution out there. And again, we did that by email to get that information out to people. And again, inviting them to get back in contact with us. We also looked at community councils. We felt that a lot of the community councils do have social media pages in our area, and that was quite a good way to get the message out across the whole locality, across the whole of Fife. And we got feedback from community councils that posters were used in community notice boards, and some of the information that we provided was put out in newsletters as well, which went through people's doors. So we did feel that was quite a positive thing to do. So after our distribution, we decided to have a feedback session. So after the period of the campaign, of it all going out and going live, and so that's probably the most of what I'm going to talk to you about today. So we did a debrief meeting with our partners, everyone who'd been involved in the design and distribution, and we just did a basic SWOT analysis just to allow us to have that conversation about what went well and what we might need to kind of build on. So the limitation I would say at this point to this feedback is that it wasn't everyone who was involved in the planning. So it wasn't from members of the public who engaged with the campaign or from any of the organisations that we contacted. So it was really just our reflections and perceptions of what went well and so on. So initially, we looked at the strengths of the campaign, and our first thing that we noted was our reach. So we found that using Facebook and Twitter, just from 3 organisations, that would be ourselves, Fife Council, the Community Safety Partnership Facebook, and one of our partners, Fife Women's Aid, we were able to identify the reach that each of our posts actually got, I suppose. And so we felt that was quite significant, the figures that we had there. We felt that within the design, there were really good visuals within the campaign. The images were really versatile, and it gave the organisations and partners choice about what they wanted to do. So we didn't ask, we advised everyone that we were doing a 4-week post with 4 different posts each week, but we didn't ask people to do the same. We kind of gave them the choice about how they would like to do it. If they wanted to share our posts, we'd be delighted for that. But if they wanted to just put one post up with something that was relevant to them, then we would encourage that as well. And we felt because it was not date specific, the material could really be reused at any time. So if someone didn't want to use it at the exact same time that we were putting it out, they could quite easily lift that up and put that out at another time. It means that we can reuse it as well, and we're probably going to reuse it during 16 days as well. Within this particular campaign, we felt our partnership work was quite strong, particularly with Police Scotland and with the Community Safety Partnership. And we felt like in the design phase and sharing messages and linking to Don't Be That Guy, there were kind of some key partnership strengths there. We also felt that we had really good support from communications, and the design of the toolkit itself, I think, really speaks in that sense. We had really professional input from communications for that. We had feedback that the back-to-back posts worked well. So having that momentum of 4 in a row and just there was another one coming out each week really allowed us to build the message in the community, and we got quite a lot of response. So when I showed you the numbers in terms of the reach, that was people that had like looked at it or commented at it or on it or liked it. So actually we got quite a lot of comments as well, a significant amount of comments, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment. So again, we had feedback that it was good that the campaign can be drip fed, and it was not a strict 4-week process. So it meant that if anybody missed a week, they could just catch up and put that out whenever they wanted. So it was really about choice and allowing organisations to take a little bit of ownership of the campaign as well if they chose to. So we moved on to looking at the weaknesses in the campaign, and we felt this was a really key part for us to develop some learning as well. So we were trying to be optimistic, but also realistically critical of ourselves, I suppose. So some of the key things that we noticed is that when we put the posts out, we did receive quite a lot of negative comments. And again, I'm going to come back to those in a moment. But what we didn't do was we failed to gather those negative comments as they appeared. We had quite a lot of people asking for the comments to be deleted on the comment thread, and sometimes when we did that, we were not able to access the comments. So that's definitely a weakness of the campaign, is that we didn't gather all the negative comments and put them together. We failed to gather comments about lighting and safety aspects as well that could actually be acted upon. And in retrospect, when we looked back, we felt that it looked like maybe we weren't doing anything when people commented on bins or street lighting, and we felt that was a real weakness in the campaign, that we really should have gone through the local schemes to see what was going on, speak to partners about that, and perhaps even respond to the posts by saying, thanks for letting us know, and we're going to pass that on to our colleagues or relevant partners. We felt that we needed to be clearer about how the partnership engages with social media, including misogynistic comments. So as I've alluded to, we did get quite a lot of comments, misogynistic and quite negative about some of the things we were saying. And so we needed to be clearer as a partnership about how it was that we would respond to those comments. And I'm going to come back to that as well. So at this point, we also couldn't tell quite who the campaign reaches. So we know that Fife Council Facebook users are a much higher percentage of women, approximately 76%, I think, of our followers are women. So we know that we had the 30,000 approximate likes and views, but we can't specifically tell what demographic that is that we reached. And we also felt that using social media focus, it might actually miss anybody who wasn't using Facebook as that particular platform or social media in general. So we do know that there's a little bit of work that we need to do there. And probably very importantly, what we found was that we didn't have any lived experience voices. And we felt that that might have been a really strong way to tell the story across this campaign. So in terms of the opportunities that we found, we felt that there was a real opportunity to work with others to respond to these comments. And that was really a chance for us to think about what partners we have around the table that potentially would share the responsibility to monitor the pages and respond to some of the comments. Now, we also wanted to write some stop answers to some of the comments that we were getting as well, so that we would have a quick and easy comment that we could post back up there when things started to take a turn for the worse in terms of the comments. So previous things that we were getting up were comments like, it's not all men, so it's not all men that kind of are a risk to women, and men are victims too. And I'm going to come back, as I said, to talk about that a little bit. So our opportunities would be to tell a story, to use real life examples, making the messages personal, and using stats from Fife and experience of women and girls as well, if anybody was willing to share our experiences. And then we would maybe kind of have to explore a little bit about that. Our opportunity was to engage with local communities a little bit more than we have. We've already started that exploration with local communities, so we just wanted to maybe think about how we could build on that. And we wanted to evaluate and experience to inform our future campaigns, and that specifically links into 16 days as well. So we can use this at any time that we have a story in the press, so we can just lift those images and lift the text that we've got, and we can get that out there onto social media if there's any time that we feel that we need to have a quick response to any particular instance that are coming up in our area. And learning from Facebook comments, so this is probably our key opportunity. We found what issues were important to women as well as we looked at our Facebook comments, and it was interesting to hear some of the stuff about place that's already been mentioned definitely came up through our comments. Okay, so I'm going to move on to tell you a little bit about what we would call threats, and these were the types of comments that we got back from some of the posts that we put out. So bear in mind that our posts were about small steps that men could adapt in their behaviour to help women feel safer, recognising that the statistics were showing us that women do feel significantly less safe than men in their local area. So some of the things we got back were that victim blaming. So if a woman wants to be out half naked, looking for someone to give their attention, then it's their fault, which when we looked at these comments, we were like, well, this just serves to show that we need to be here and we need to be doing things like this, because this is the general attitude that we've got out there. So in some ways, hearing these comments just bolstered us up for saying, yeah, we need to be here and we need to be doing this. What we did find though, although I've got this under threats, is that you'll see on the comments on the right hand side of the screen, this is a kind of thread of some of the comments. We actually found that the posters were self-regulating. So we actually found that we didn't really need to step in. There would be a lot of people that would come in and say, you're wrong, or can I show you these stats to demonstrate this, or just here's a different opinion and a bit of you're making yourself look a bit of a so yeah, I just saw someone's comment there. Yeah, we were quite shocked as well, to be honest. So, and again, some other people saying like we're not going to make these changes. We don't think that we should be making these changes. It's up to women to make themselves feel safer. So, yes, so see a chat there as well. That was one of the things that we were quite pleased to see as well, is that some of the voices that were challenging the negative comments where there was a real good mix of women and men. So that was really good to see as well, that there was that kind of male voice coming through. But what we were worried about and what we kind of saw as quite a clear threat is that these misogynistic commentators really did seem to take over some of the discussion and distract from some of the original messaging. And what we found as well, we'd put a hashtag on of Don't Be That Guy. And I think that's a national hashtag. So people were posting in our Fife pages from all across the world. And so then we had people calling them out saying, I think these guys are trolling. I think they're just here to cause trouble. So that was quite challenging for us as well to try to kind of respond to some of that. And again, that's probably where I mentioned that people were asking for the comments to be deleted and for people to be removed from the posts. And that's where we kind of responded and reacted and deleted and removed. So I think actually when I say deleted, I think it was the comment was hidden because it was our colleagues at the communications team that did it. So they kind of hid the post so that it wasn't visible for everybody to then read our post and then kind of follow down through those comments. So yeah, that was our concern. Our major threat was really that conversation took away from what we were actually asking for. And there was also a real threat that misandry became like a mainstream term. There was this real accusation in some of the comments that there was this vilification of men that we were doing. I think you can see in one of them there, someone's put it's disgusting that we're running an anti-men campaign, which absolutely is, is not what we're doing at all. And we were trying to emphasise as well that foot violence can also happen to men, but the statistics show us that it predominantly happens to women by men. So it was just trying to respond to these in an appropriate way. But as I've said, there was a lot of self-moderation within the pages, which was real positivity for us to see. But we did see that there were some missing or quieter voices. So although there were men responding to these comments and kind of calling the other posters out, we didn't see a huge amount of men saying, yep, I need to do this, I need to make this change, I'd like to make this change, or I'm going to start this change from now onwards. It seemed to be men that were already understanding of the issues that we were discussing. And it certainly didn't balance the misogyny, and we have predominantly heard female voices saying we need change. So just a little bit of an overview of some of that there. Sorry. So in terms of going forward, we felt that this was a really good campaign for us in terms of learning. We certainly got quite a lot of coverage from the campaign, and there was quite a lot of positives that came out of it, but there's some really strong going forward points for us in terms of learning and in terms of what we would like to do for the future. So these are just some of our kind of what next points that I'd like to kind of finish with. Firstly, we have recognised that COVID has hit us all, and I think one of the ways that it's hit us is by these strong in-person networks that we previously had before COVID, but actually certainly in Fife, we seem to have been doing a lot of crisis and response work, and we kind of have dropped some of those strong in-person networks in our local communities. So we're hoping to potentially work with White Ribbon to rebuild some of that. A huge strength for us is that strong relationship that we have with Police Scotland in this area, and we're looking to maintain that strong relationship, and we're working really closely with them for the 16 Days campaign as well. So we are really keen to improve our communication with organisations that have high levels of male engagement. We're revising our action plan at the moment, and that's a really key thing that's come out in a lot of our discussions, is that this aspect of our work in terms of the early intervention is something that people are really keen for us to see more of. We've actually started to do a bit of this during our 16 Days programme, and we've had We've got 3 really positive events planned at the football stadiums with Dunfermline, Wraith Rovers and East Fife. Dunfermline has something like an attendance of 3,600 spectators, and we're going to be there on Saturday with them at their game, giving out white ribbons. The players are going to be wearing white ribbon t-shirts, and all of the clubs are really keen to get involved on this level and start getting those conversations happening. We've also got, through the campaign, we've managed to get a contact at our Andy's Man Club, one of the Andy's Man Club in our area. Didn't say that right, Andy's Man clubs in our area, and we're going to be leading a discussion session with some members from the Man's Club next week as part of 16 days. So I was really heartened to hear Angela's comments earlier about those comments from men saying that they want more of those discussion spaces, they want more opportunity to talk about these kinds of things. Really what we're going to focus on for that is about gender equality. And certainly the link to Andy's Man Club is thinking about how changing gender equality works for everyone, because Andy's Man Club obviously is focusing on those like toxic masculinity stereotypes of it's not okay to cry, you have to be strong, and obviously there's like a suicide focus for them as well, that actually talking about things is really important. So we're hoping to have a really good conversation there about that mutual respect, and that gender inequality is actually bad for all genders. So I'm really excited about that one, and as I say, after hearing Angela's comments, really heartened about how that might look. So one of the key things that we're looking at, and again this came up when we were looking at our action plan as well, is a dedicated social media page. So it sounds like across the partnership there's a real interest in using social media as a space to have some of these early intervention and engagement messages. And we, as I said, we currently don't have a Fife Violence Against Women partnership social media platform. We just piggyback onto the Fife Council one or the community safety one, and also the police kind of do link in for us as well, in NHS and so on. But we've been looking into whether that's reasonable for us to have our own one. So I'd be really interested to hear whether anyone has experiences of that and what that might look like for us going forward. And we've also had feedback to consider which social media platforms we use. So people have been telling us that Facebook's not as popular with younger people. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter is probably really worth considering for how we want to move forward. So we're going to be putting a little bit of attention towards those sort of social media aspects to see whether we can get a better platform for engagement. So thank you very much for your attention during my presentation, and I hope you found something in it that's quite interesting. Here's my email address, and I'm more than willing to take any emails from anybody. And I'm sorry that this link is so huge, but this is the link to our pages on the Fife government website. So you're probably quicker just Googling Fife Violence Against Women partnership. But thank you for your attention. I really appreciate having the chance to speak to you today. Thank you.